Well, this is a second spontaneous stream. I want to set the record straight on something that, Roy claims Floyd is saying, and that's not what Floyd is saying. So we're going to get into it. Roy Jones Jr., first of all, Roy Jones Jr. says this about Floyd Mayweather.
Roy Jones Jr. is asked where he ranks Floyd Mayweather in boxing history.
If you don't respect Muhammad Ali, how can I respect you? To tell me that you don't think Muhammad Ali is the greatest of all time, you may well be spitting in my face.
He doesn't even put him in the top 5.
You may as well spit in my face. The greatest athlete of all times, always in my book, is going to be Muhammad Ali.
And that ain't what I think, that's what I know.
Well, some people live for different reasons.
Yeah.
Like you said, some people live for or respect different things in life. Some people more materialistic or like that than others. Ali had a heart of gold. I loved Ali because of the heart he had. He fought for the weak. He stood up for those that were disabled or those that wasn't as beneficial as others. He fought for all good for all people. And he tried to keep everybody unified at the same time. When he died, you saw people from every religion, every race come to his funeral. Why? How many other people have we seen that happen with?
Yeah.
Not many. You understand me?
In a sense, he transcended the sport completely, didn't he?
Exactly. They took his best years away from him.
Yeah.
And he's still the greatest of all times. What'd that tell you?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me tell you why Roy feels the way he does. Shout out to Prophet Muscle, from which I get this video. This is what Floyd said about Muhammad Ali and Roy Jones Jr. And this is what triggered Roy to say what he said. Listen carefully.
Roy Jones and Muhammad Ali is the same fighter. Their defense is their legs. They're young, and at the top of their game, they can move. Once their legs went away, they sat down the rope-a-dope. Ali, the same fighter that got beat by a fighter with 7 fights. Leon Spence beat Muhammad Ali when he only had 7 fights. Ken Norton really beat Ali all 3 times. Go back and look at the fights. And I take my hat off to Roy Jones. Still beat more world champions than Roy Jones.
So shout out to Prophet Muscle. Okay, so let me break it down for you guys. Basically, Floyd was saying he's better than Muhammad Ali. He never said that Muhammad Ali is not the greatest fighter to ever live the world. Of course, no fighter will say that about another fighter. They will say that about themselves. But nonetheless, the point that Floyd was making had to do with boxing. It didn't have to do with Muhammad Ali as a person. In that same interview he had with Channel Sharp, he was saying Muhammad Ali did some power moves. Muhammad Ali was bigger than just the sport of boxing. He spoke on, as Roy Jones Jr. was so correctly saying, on humanity and taking advantage of minorities and why he shouldn't be a slave to the white man and the white man system, etc., 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 right? So Floyd ain't talking about that. That's what you want to give Muhammad Ali the greatest for, plus his outstanding boxing. He was able to get that platform to speak like that because he's an outstanding boxer. Floyd's like, cool, he's the greatest. I'm the best ever. I'm a better boxer than Muhammad Ali was. And he makes his case. He makes his argument. He was saying, and the reason why Roy takes so much offense to Muhammad Ali is because Roy and Muhammad Ali, they fight in a similar sort of way. They depend on their feet. They depend on distance. They depend on range to win fights. And Floyd so correctly said when their legs went, they had to do a lot of rope-a-doping. Muhammad Ali, his legs went in the latter stages. That's why he took so much punishment. Roy Jones Jr. in the latter stage of his career, his legs went, but unlike Muhammad Ali, he got knocked out cold. Muhammad Ali never got knocked out cold. Any fight Muhammad Ali was fighting in, he never got stopped. He got dropped, but he never got stopped. Meaning, he never stopped fighting. His corner had to throw in the towel on him against Larry Holmes. But the point I'm making anyway is that Muhammad Ali was a similar fighter to Roy Jones Jr. Floyd analytically breaks it down. Right. Now, Roy takes that which is Floyd is talking about, boxing and purely boxing, he takes that and he says, Floyd is saying that Muhammad Ali's not the greatest, and Muhammad Ali's not, wasn't a great person, and, Floyd trashed Muhammad Ali. He did not trash Muhammad Ali, right? Floyd loves Muhammad Ali. Floyd loves Roy Jones Jr. And he has a lot of love in his heart for Roy because, as we all know, Floyd borrowed a lot from Roy, and Floyd borrowed a lot from Muhammad Ali. His father Floyd Mayweather Sr. was a big Muhammad Ali fan, okay? When Roy starts to praise Sugar Ray Leonard again, nothing's wrong with that. But Floyd is right. When Roy's legs went, he got knocked out left, right, and center. Because Roy was not known as, he's not known as an inside fighter, right? Roy is not known as somebody with great defense once he's not away from range. He's been stopped multiple times, right? Once the guy can be within range of him. His legs was where he got all his spring, his speed, his quickness. He had quick hands, but it's his feet really that made the difference. He positioned himself a certain way. And this is what Floyd realized. He understands fighters, and he's assessing Muhammad Ali and assessing Roy Jones Jr., and he's doing it just from a boxing perspective. In other words, if these guys were phenomenal athletes and their names weren't Roy Jones Jr., their names weren't Muhammad Ali, here I am assessing them. And he's telling you their strengths and their weaknesses, because Floyd's good at that. That's what he does. He can size up a fighter like that. Okay? So that's what was going on, and apparently Roy took offense to that and blew it out of control, blew it out of proportion of what Floyd is assessing. Floyd is assessing them as fighters, and he's assessing them as fighters, and then you have these out of context comments by Roy as if Floyd is trying to trash him, and Floyd was not trashing them. He's very respectful of them. He's just assessing them based on what their pros and cons were. Okay, and he sized up what Roy was as a fighter. Yeah, and Floyd's not saying that Muhammad Ali had control over winning or losing to Leon Spinks. His point is, once Muhammad Ali's legs went, he was fighting more off of heart and rope-a-dope. I'm pretty sure everybody will agree with me on this. If Muhammad Ali was the Cassius Clay or the Muhammad Ali that beat Sonny Liston facing Leroy Spinks, this fight would not last as long as it's last, right? He would have knocked out Leon Spinks. But because he didn't have the legs anymore, he had to fight Leon Spinks with his reflexes, his upper body movement, and then counter him. And that's what you were seeing. That's the point that Floyd's making. He's not saying, look at how Leon Spinks beat him. He wasn't good. That's not what he's saying. He's saying he's making a point that Muhammad Ali, once his legs went, just like Roy Jones Jr., once that was a part of their major part of their defense was distance, using their legs. Okay? Listen to Floyd again. The argument is a sensible one. And it's something that it's one that you've got to understand. A lot of people out here misunderstand. When Floyd says he's the best ever, he does not mean it as in, oh, he's beating his chest, I'm better than Muhammad Ali, like that. He's not bragging. He's saying, look at the facts. Look at what I've done in my career. Look at what kind of boxer I am. Look how all around I am complete as a boxer. I've assessed many fighters, and I've assessed Muhammad Ali. I've assessed Roy Jones Jr. This is what they do well, right? But once certain attributes of them was gone, they had nothing to fall back on. But when my attributes were gone, I had something else to fall back on. I'm like Bernard Hopkins. I was able to reinvent myself. So this is what Floyd is saying, and this is why he says he's a better fighter than Muhammad Ali and Roy Jones Jr. It has nothing to do with how great they are. Roy will always be a great legend. Muhammad Ali is probably one of the greatest legends of all time when it comes to boxing particularly, right? So that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about who's the better boxer. Floyd's acronym, the best ever, is really a great acronym because it really shows the caliber of fighter that Floyd was. And Roy can be mad or jealous that he ended his career on 50-0. He can feel all kinds of how about it. But at the end of the day, Floyd factually won 50 fights, having no losses. And he did it over the spans of close to 20 years. And he was a world champion out of those 20 years for almost 18 of those 20 years. To be performing at that high level, consistency, and the difference here is consistency. In fact, look what
Roy Jones and Muhammad Ali is the same fighter. Their defense is their legs. They're young, and at the top of their game, they can move. Once their legs went away,
okay, stop right there.
Ali is the same fighter that got beat by a fighter with 7 fights. Leon Spinks beat.
How do I shut this fucking video down?
7 fights.
Oh,
In order to be
okay. Shit, man. Hate when that shit happens. Okay, what I was trying to show you guys is, unfortunately, once I start the video, it just keeps running. But you know what I'll do? I know what I'll do. Okay.
Roy Jones and Muhammad Ali is the same fighter. Their defense is their legs. They're young, and at the top of their game, they can move. Once their legs went away, they said.
Okay. Discipline dictates your destiny. The thing about Floyd that separates him from the Muhammad Ali's, from the Roy Jones Jr.'s, from the James Tonys, from the Julio Cesar Chavez, etc., is Floyd wasn't the most talented guy in the world. He wasn't the most, flamboyant, flashy guy with the most flashy, the most flashy boxing skills out there, right? But you know what Floyd had? Floyd had immense discipline and consistency. And discipline and consistency, even with a limited amount of talent and skill, carries you much further than a very talented person who's very inconsistent. These guys abuse their bodies. Julio Cesar Chavez used every kind of cocktail of drug available. Womanized like crazy, was very abusive, right? Roger Mayweather, same thing. Drinking, smoking, beating women, having sex. So these guys weren't as disciplined as Floyd Mayweather was. Sugar Ray Leonard was involved in all kinds of things, including cocaine addiction and drug addiction. Floyd he always said your body is the temple. He never defiled his body. He doesn't use alcohol. He doesn't smoke cigarettes. And so you could see his dedication and his discipline to boxing. And he took no opponent for granted, no matter what people said about the opponent. He left no stone unturned, especially after he got his ass beat by Paul Spadafora in sparring. His whole attitude changed to the sport of boxing. And because of that, Floyd was as all-round a boxer as he could possibly be. In fact, coming to the end of his career, he was still gaining new wrinkles on the sport of boxing. He was still refining certain things and polishing certain things. To this day, Floyd is as a very quick boxer. His feet are not the same, but he still has that quick reflexes. He still has that solid defense his father taught him, and then he added to it, and he used other styles of defense and so on. So, and then Floyd was a defensive fighter par excellence. Roy was an aggressive defensive fighter, so was Muhammad Ali. But again, they needed range. They needed distance to do their thing. They needed their feet to work for them. And again, your feet are a very important part of boxing. But for them, it was the quickness of feet. It was the dexterity of feet that made a difference. Floyd is not just depending on his movement and his footwork. He also depends on his stance. He also depends on other little wrinkles in the game of boxing that people do not think about. It's not just about trying to be at a certain range. He had a great defense for mid-range. He had a great defense for inside fighting. He had a great defense for when you're on the ropes. He had a great defense for when you're off the ropes. He had a great defense going forward. He had a great defense going backward. He didn't just bounce around the ring. He wasn't just about springing surprise attacks, though he could do that. His footwork was in increments. He would very quick increments and shuffling of the feet very quickly. So Floyd had a different approach. Manny Pacquiao had some of the elements of what Floyd had. But Pacquiao didn't have as good defense because Floyd had a plethora of things that he could do defensively. Like you could throw 6, 7, 8 shots at Floyd. He didn't even move his feet. He just moved his upper body backward and forward and leaning back and all of that. And he would get out, clear, dodge, block most of the shots. Because Floyd's defense, Muhammad Ali could do that too. Don't get me wrong, but Muhammad Ali still depended on his feet more than anything else. And he clinched a lot. And so Floyd was describing that aspect. Roy took that way out of context and he tried to show that Floyd was disrespecting Muhammad Ali and by extension, disrespecting himself. And he even says that. So listen to, you remember Floyd says, Roy and Muhammad Ali are the same fighter, right? Watch what Roy says, which confirms this. Listen to him again. Oops, hold on a second.
Floyd Mayweather in boxing history.
Who? If you don't respect Muhammad Ali, how can I respect you? To tell me that you don't think Muhammad Ali is the greatest of all time,
Yeah.
you may well be spitting in my face.
He doesn't even put him in the top 5.
You may as well.
Okay, so he says, for you not to realize that Muhammad Ali is the greatest of time, you may be spitting in my face. And that goes to what Floyd is saying. Roy says, you're spitting in my face because I patterned myself after Muhammad Ali. You know what I'm saying? Roy is telling Floyd, I patterned myself after Muhammad Ali. What you talking about? You know? Because as Floyd said,
Roy Jones and Muhammad Ali is the same fighter. Their defense is their legs. They're young, and at the top of their game, they can move. Once their legs went away, they sat down the rope-a-dope. Ali, the same fighter that got beat by a fighter with 7 fights.
so you get what Floyd is saying? And this is what Roy is misunderstanding. Floyd is not hating on Roy or Ali. They did their thing. You know, they were good at what they did. And Floyd even goes on to say, you know, I love Roy Jones Jr., and he really does. But like he said, you know, I love Roy, but you got to understand, I beat more world champions than Roy. I had a more comprehensive defense than Roy had. You see what I'm saying? So that's all Floyd is saying. And of course, Roy doesn't like that Floyd says that about him. So that's why Roy say what he say. You know, Roy would praise Manny Pacquiao for the very same things that Floyd do. You know, Roy would say, you know, Floyd waited till Pacquiao got old. He always throw jabs at Floyd, right? And I believe it's because Roy feels some kind of way that Floyd succeeded at the things he wanted to do. Roy wanted to fight Anderson Silva. He wanted to do the crossover fight with MMA and boxing. When Anderson Silva was the joint, and Anderson Silva can box. You know, Conor McGregor is a joke, but Anderson Silva can actually box. And I would still like to see Roy fight Anderson Silva if that's possible. Right? You know, Roy feels some kind of way, I feel, about Floyd having taken his blueprint and gotten success off of the blueprint he wanted to do. You know, Roy feels some kind of way how they took away his undefeated record against the kid from Chicago, right? So I get why Roy might sometimes say certain things about Floyd, even though Floyd treat Roy and love Roy. You know, I could see Roy feeling some kind of way about Floyd because Floyd was a calculated fighter. You know, Floyd was a very calculated fighter. Like, if he gonna face this opponent, he gonna try and find every single way to have an advantage over that opponent, whether it's mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever way. He looking for that advantage. He not taking no chances. He want to make sure he could beat that opponent, and if he could win the battle before going into the ring, he gonna do that. That was Floyd. Now Roy say, Floyd pick when he want to face a guy or when he don't want to face a guy. Well, I'm gonna say this, particularly in terms of Pacquiao. Floyd wanted to face Pacquiao. That's why Floyd came back into boxing. Remember, Floyd took a vacation from boxing, right? Floyd didn't have to come back to boxing, right? He was done after 2000. What was it? He made all his money, took a break from boxing in 2006, right? I believe he stayed out of boxing until 2009. He came back in 2009. So I believe 2007, 2007, he left boxing and came back in 2009, right? So he only came back because Pacquiao was, in the pound for pound #1 status that he once had. And that's why he came back. He wanted Pacquiao, but he got Marquez instead. Marquez called his ass out, and that's why, right? He came out of retirement. He fought Marquez, beat Marquez. And then the next guy he wanted to face, which was Pacquiao's nemesis, was Pacquiao. So he beat Marquez, and then he turned around and said, all right, Pacquiao, you next. That's what he said at the end of the Marquez fight, right? And Shane Mosley came in and was trying to cloud up the whole thing. Why don't you fight me? Because nobody wanted to fight Mosley, right? So the point I'm making anyway is Floyd wanted to face Pacquiao. His concern was Pacquiao using PEDs, which more than likely Pacquiao was using, but was Pacquiao using PEDs? It was a concern of his. So he was like, all right, so make sure we have a level playing field. Let's just do some, blood and urine testing on a regular basis using USADA rules. And let's call it a day. Pacquiao never accepted that until 2015, 8 years later. He agreed to all of that stuff. So, you cannot fault Floyd, Roy. You can't fault Floyd for not facing Pacquiao before that. Because he always was making the offers. He's always wanting to fight. He knew that fight was money. So, of course, he came back to face Pacquiao. This is common sense. He came back to say, I'm going to take the #1 spot. Here's this dude. He got a lot of hype behind him. Yeah, of course I want to fight him. Right? It's not like Floyd did not want to fight Pacquiao and it was the right time and all this bullshit. No, it was the right time for Bob Arum. He made a lot of money off of Pacquiao because Floyd came back into the game and he was the only guy. He was the former pound for pound #1. So yeah, of course, he will ride the coattails of Floyd and ride his name, just like how these fucking haters of Zack Snyder are riding Zack Snyder's name all now, to benefit their industry, but it's never working. You know what I'm saying? It's always backfiring. Yo, it's a lot of you up in here. God damn. Leave comments in the comment section after we done here. All right. So all I'm saying is, and again, I'm a guy that believes that boxing as a sport evolves. It changes, right? So again, I'm not mad at nobody who don't hold that particular opinion, but it's very clear to me, I don't know about y'all, that Floyd was a better boxer than Roy Jones Jr. and a better boxer than Muhammad Ali. Now, Roy will tell you, go look at the highlights. Go look at the highlights of Floyd. Go look at my highlights and see who's more entertaining. Again, Roy, entertainment is a subjective thing, right? However, you go and you watch Roy in action, you go and watch Muhammad Ali in action, you go and watch Floyd in action, and you judge that for yourself. All right? Because they were all three of them were highly entertaining, especially Pretty Boy Floyd years. Floyd was highly entertaining in his Pretty Boy Floyd years, right? As he got older, he did things in so much nuance and such a high level that not everybody appreciates that. Okay. I would appreciate it. Boxers would appreciate it, but not necessarily everybody would appreciate it, especially people who do not understand boxing. Because they're going to say, like, it should be rock and sock and robots from beginning to end. But they don't understand how much Floyd controlled, disciplined, tamed fighters. Fighters that come in with a whole set of fury, and before you know it, they tamed. He domesticated them because he punished them. He had the power to punish them. He just couldn't consistently punish them. And he'd get their punch rate way down, and he'd be in control. And then it was the Floyd show from there on in. You know, people don't understand these things. And it's all right. It's all well and good. All I'm saying is, though, don't be telling me, oh, he didn't have any drag out fights and stuff because he was so in control of every single fight he was in. That's what a lot of y'all don't understand. The dude knew how to set up opponents with traps. He was a master at that. He was also a master of mentally beating down a fighter and making them think it was pointless what they were doing in the ring. He would break their will mentally in a ring. And there are very few fighters' will that didn't get broken. Marcus Maidana, the first fight, his will wasn't broken. The second fight, his will was broken in round, I believe it was 8 or 9. Floyd took the will out of Marcus Maidana, tamed him down, and that was that. Right? And there's so many different ways to go about doing that in the ring, mentally wearing down somebody while beating their ass, like putting a beating on them, not knocking them out, but putting a beating on them that could mentally mess with them for the rest of their lives if you don't watch yourself. And Floyd was really good at that. He was really, really good at that. And that's some nuance in boxing that, a lot of people fail to understand. So I think Roy misunderstood. Either he misunderstood Floyd or he deliberately blows this thing out of the context of which Floyd is speaking. Floyd is speaking about Roy. He's speaking about Muhammad Ali in the context of boxing as a sport, not in the context of people, not in the context of their aura, not in the context of how great their fights were and how entertaining their fight. He's not talking in that context. He's talking strictly in the context of boxing, their abilities, what kind of fighters they were. That's the thing he's talking about. And he's just analytically assessing it and showing you through raw facts why he is better than them as a boxer. That's it. All right, that was all it was. And Roy shouldn't take this out of context and do as if Floyd is trashing Muhammad Ali. He's not trashing Muhammad Ali. He's making a point that once his legs went, a guy like Leroy Spinks, who's, don't get me wrong, was Olympian and a great fighter and everything, but a guy like Leon Spinks, who should not have been able to beat Muhammad Ali, and probably would not have beaten Muhammad Ali if he was younger and he had his legs, was able to beat him. And that's what Floyd's point. That was his point. His point is, once their legs went, they weren't as super as they were before. They had no other contingency except for the rope-a-dope. That's what Floyd is saying. You got it? And that's why Roy became mortal. He became somebody that could be beaten. He became somebody that, before that, he was immortal because, the quickness, the footwork, the angles he was able to push off of his legs to put him in the position to set traps and so on. And all of this, again, Floyd idolized Roy Jones Jr. coming up. He idolized Muhammad Ali coming up. He idolized Sugar Ray Leonard coming up. He idolized Shane Mosley coming up. He idolized Oscar De La Hoya, even though he was jealous of Oscar De La Hoya coming up. You got to understand, Floyd loved these guys. That's why he says, I have to always give thanks to those who paved the way. He understands succession. You see what I'm saying? He understood succession. He understood that the ones who came before him paved the way for his opportunity today to be in the position he is today. And he's very thankful to them. And therefore, he cannot be disrespectful to them. So he's not trying to be disrespectful to Muhammad Ali. He's not trying to be disrespectful to Roy Jones Jr., even though his diss video where he showed himself watching Roy getting knocked out, which was, it was ice cold, brutaless, okay? Because I'm telling you right now, Floyd loves Roy Jones Jr. Don't let him fool you. All right. There's a reason why he don't talk nothing about Mike Tyson. He don't talk nothing about Roy. He don't talk nothing about certain fighters, because even Julio Cesar Chavez, you will not hear Floyd talk negative. Now, if you're talking boxing, He's going to start breaking down these fighters. Julio Cesar Chavez, Pernell Whitaker, usually he talks about smaller fighters because he's a smaller fighter. If Roberto Duran is one of the great fighters that Floyd esteems very, very highly. Okay. Roberto Duran got his ass beat many times, especially later on in his career. Right. So it's not that Floyd doesn't like even with Roberto Duran. Okay. Floyd, even though he loves Roberto Duran, even though he loves Pernell Whitaker, he can speak on them as fighters and where he saw shortcomings of them as fighters. That is not hating on a fighter. That's being critical of them, but it's not being hating on them. It doesn't mean he doesn't love Roberto Duran. Roberto Duran is one of Floyd's favorite fighters of all time. We all know Floyd loved Pernell Whitaker. If you look at Floyd's face when he's taking a picture with Pernell, he's like a little kid. He's real happy to see Pernell Whitaker. He loves Pernell Whitaker. But Floyd he would be critical of Pernell Whitaker if he had to be critical of Pernell Whitaker. Right? Just because I love a fighter doesn't mean I don't see the fighter's flaws. Doesn't mean that I don't see that the fighter can do no wrong. And that's the problem with some of these guys in boxing. I understand you walk the walk. It's a rare thing. The success you had, there's very few that have ever had that success. Roy Jones Jr. is not just any ordinary fighter. No matter what, this guy did extraordinary things in the sport of boxing. There's no way I will ever be hating on Roy or hate Roy because Roy brought a whole new dimension to the sport of boxing. He brought promotion. He brought entertainment. He brought rapping. This guy did it all. So when you talk about Roy Jones Jr., you got to respect that fucking name, okay? So I have nothing but love for Roy Jones Jr. I'm just saying, though, when Floyd benefited tremendously from Roy's input into the sport of boxing, okay? And yes, I believe that they did Roy dirty because Roy was a phenomenal, not no ordinary boxer. The things that you see Roy do, shooting off of either hand, springing off of either foot. The things that Roy did, going southpaw orthodox. People talk about Marvin Hagler. Roy took Marvin Hagler to a whole other level of athleticism and skill. The understanding Roy has of boxing is on another level. Okay? So let's get this in right perspective so that people understand. I'm a tremendous fan of Roy Jones Jr. Roy Jones Jr. is one of my favorite boxers of all time. I think everybody would say the same. Roy Jones Jr. is Sugar Ray Robinson in the modern times. Roy did things that Sugar Ray Robinson dreamed of doing that he never did. Okay? But Roy is a phenomenal fighter. Okay? And we must not forget this. Okay? When we talk about Muhammad Ali was a phenomenal fighter. Even when his body quit on him, his will to win drove him to win against some very close fights. Okay? So when we talk about these guys, you got to understand, I'm not trying to diminish them. And neither is Floyd trying to diminish them as fighters. He's not trying to tear them down. He's just showing you what kind of fighter they were and where the deficiencies lay. When Roy's legs went, like almost any athlete in any sport, if you're in football, you need your legs. If you're in tennis, you need your legs. When your legs go, then it's very difficult to do the other things that you want to do in a sport where you need your legs. Okay? So this is all that Floyd is saying. If you put yourself in that situation, you understand what I'm saying. Now, these guys performed at the highest level of the sport, where every asset you could possibly put together, you use. Okay? Now, because Floyd understands spatial arrangements a certain sort of way, Floyd was very economical with his movements. He would move in small steps. Because he moved in small steps, instead of springing off, the legs like Roy did, or moving excessively around the ring like Muhammad Ali did, he preserved his legs somewhat. And even if Floyd is a tick slower or 4 or 5 ticks slower, Bernard Hopkins, another guy like that. That's why Roy couldn't beat Bernard Hopkins the second time, because Bernard Hopkins understood spatial arrangements very, very well then. He was more mature. It's hard to beat a Bernard Hopkins when, because Bernard Hopkins had it all as well, like Floyd. Right? He's not as celebrated as Floyd because he had more losses in his career. But Bernard Hopkins is a similar sort of mentality as Floyd was. And the fundamentals of boxing, Bernard Hopkins had it. That's why he was able to fight for so long in his career, almost till the age of 50. And he was a world champion until he was, 49, I think? Amazing. Okay. Archie Moore is another guy. They know how to use spatial arrangements. They know how to economize on their movements. They called him the mongoose. This guy fought at heavyweight. Archie Moore, light heavyweight, fighting at heavyweight and hanging in there with some of the best heavyweights of all time. Hurting Rocky Marciano, dropping him. So you have to think about what I'm saying. Yes, Roy and Muhammad Ali had great legs, but they weren't necessarily the most economical with their leg movements. And that's where Floyd was able to have more durability like Bernard Hopkins. So I'm trying to get people to understand what Floyd be saying so that y'all will put it in the right context. He's not in any way, shape, or form trying to be disrespectful to Muhammad Ali or Roy Jones Jr. You don't do that. You don't take your teachers that taught you something and disrespect them. You just don't do that. And Roy was one of Floyd's teachers. By watching him and admiring him. Muhammad Ali was one of his teachers. But the thing about boxing is a cruel sport. You may, like Sugar Ray Leonard versus Terry Norris. Terry Norris was he loved Sugar Ray Leonard. Huge fan of Sugar Ray. He kicked Sugar Ray Leonard's ass. I mean, he gave him an ass whooping, right? Even before Hector Camacho beat Sugar Ray's ass, Terry Norris ripped Sugar Ray Leonard to pieces. But he loved Sugar Ray Leonard to death. Well, that's the brutality of boxing. If I really respect you and I really love you, that means I need to give you a tremendous whoop ass to let you know I love you so that you don't stay in the sport. You get the fuck out of the sport. Like Manny Pacquiao, he need a brutal ass beating to realize, oh shit, I need to get out of this fucking sport. I'm too old for it. Until somebody really beats his ass up, he gets an ass whooping, he's not coming out of the sport like that. He gonna keep on coming back. Because like Roy Jones Jr., like Bernard Hopkins, like Sugar Ray Robinson, these cats don't know when to call it a day. Another thing that Floyd showed you and showed how disciplined he was. He understood his body is fading, time to get out the sport. Done already got, my family has dementia, because they got diabetes running in the family, memory loss. I need to get out this sport now. I made enough money and everything. Get out the sport. He was smart. He understood he could do like exhibitions and stuff. If the itch for boxing came back in him to have a little fun, to do a little training, he understood what he was supposed to do, and he's doing it safely. Manny Pacquiao, he need to get his ass beat so fucking bad that he does not come back to the sport on that level. He can return to the sport in any other capacity, but not on that level. Oscar De La Hoya got his ass beat out the sport. After Pacquiao beat his ass, he said, all right, I got enough. Because these guys, they don't know how to stop. Andre Ward is an exception to the rule. Rocky Marciano, Timothy Bradley, Floyd Mayweather, these are guys that understood it's time to hang it up. Otherwise, you're going to be like an addicted person. You continue to do the sport to your detriment, to your health detriment, to the detriment of your family, to the detriment of it becomes an addiction. And that's the problem with Roy. Roy still wants to fight. In fact, after Floyd responded to Roy, Roy took that as a call out. Okay, so that means you and I are going to fight. You know what I'm saying? You got to control that, Roy. You got to control it. I mean, nothing's wrong with a paycheck and all of that will come with it. But, I mean, you got to control yourself, Roy. And Roy is one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. He's a bad motherfucker. Like, you don't say shit to his face and he'll punch you. You know what I'm saying? He's not one of them guys, he's not a chump. But at the same time, what Floyd said about Roy is not a diss on Roy. Floyd is showing this was the abilities that Roy had. This is the abilities that Muhammad Ali had that made them phenomenal fighters. Now, once they weren't phenomenal no more because their legs went, then they had to resort to other things. And this is why, they ended up competing the way they were. And then things happened to them. That's all he's saying. We need to stop taking things too personally, man. But Roy, be honest with you, man, the man's a living legend. He always gonna be a living legend. I think that HBO sort of did him a disservice by, because he beat everybody like they didn't belong in the ring with him, because he was so much light years ahead of them and so much quicker than them. I think people don't give him the flowers that he deserves. Roy Jones Jr. is one of the greatest fighters of all time. He's an all-time great. He's an ATG, okay? And a lot of people don't give him the credit he deserves because he made all his fights look easy. When you're beating people like Vinny Pazienza, you run into guys like he ran through I forgot, Hall of Famer guy. He was like 5-time world champion. He was like, I think 3-time light heavyweight champion, and then I think 2-time cruiserweight champion. I think Thomas Hearns beat him as well. I forgot what his name is right now. It'll come to me. When you beat that guy with a body shot, you land a body shot on him and that's it. He's like, oh, I'm done. You know what I'm saying? You beat James Toney when James Toney's in his prime. You beat Bernard Hopkins when he's green. He's the executioner, but you beat him. You got to win over him. Them 3 names I just mentioned there. Well, I didn't mention the first guy's name. I can't remember his name right now. You guys, if you know it, just say it in the chat section. But when you beat those kinds of, James Toney went on to become heavyweight champion of the world from middleweight, right? Bernard Hopkins went on to become the longest reigning champion in the world, passing Archie Moore. Okay, the other guy I talked about, he's a Hall of Famer, right? Just them 3 names. Now there's more than that, right? Remember, he went up to heavyweight and he beat the guy that beat Evander Holyfield, right? He went up to heavyweight and beat that guy. Now James Toney campaigned at heavyweight. That's the difference. James Toney was a little bit bigger than Roy, right? Rematched Bernard Hopkins, made it competitive. Antonio Tarver, who beat Roy Jones Jr., he went back and he fought Antonio Tarver, the guy that in the amateurs gave him a lot of problems. And Roy was coming at Antonio, but Antonio got that defense. You know what I'm saying? He got the sound defense. Roy don't have that kind of defense, right? But he still fought him, and it was a good fight. He also fought Bernard Hopkins, and that was a good fight. You know what I mean? So it's like, and he does have a win over Antonio Tarver, even though most people are like, I don't know about that. They thought Tarver did the better work, but it is what it is. My point is, this guy fought some people, man. And even the people he lost to, Glenn Johnson. Glenn Johnson is a 2-time or 3-time world champion, right? Danny Green. Danny Green was a 2-time world champion, I believe. Okay. So just think about what I'm saying about Roy Jones Jr. And he beat a plethora. Roy beat a plethora of champions. He faced more world champions than Floyd. He beat less world champions than Floyd, but I think 1 or 2 champions. So Roy beat a lot of champions as well. And this is the stuff that I don't think a lot of people get. How phenomenal. When you look in the history of boxing, the Harry Krebs and the Muhammad Ali's, the Sugar Ray Robinsons, the Sugar Ray Leonards, when you look at Roy's resume, his resume is more stacked than all of them guys. Well, not Sugar Ray Robinson, but his resume is pretty stacked. Him, Harry Krebs, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao have really, really fucking stacked resumes. Like their resumes are ridiculous, right? In terms of world champions and in terms of top tier opposition that they faced, their resumes are ridiculous. Roy's up there with that. You know, Muhammad Ali had also a pretty ridiculous resume for a heavyweight, particularly. He fought a lot of great heavyweights. He fought a lot of future champion heavyweights. So, you know, Muhammad Ali's up there as well. So all I'm saying is, you know, you're talking about the creme de la creme, and you got to understand, Floyd saying he's the best of that creme de la creme is not an indictment or an insult or a disrespect to the creme de la creme. And that's the problem I have with Roy taking offense to what Floyd is saying and taking it out of context. I think that he should be wise enough, he should be smart enough, he should be, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? He should be classy enough to understand that, yeah, of course, Roy in his mind, he thinks he's the best ever, which is all right, it's cool. But be able to understand that Floyd is giving you factual, concrete arguments that are only limited to the sport of boxing. We're not talking about Muhammad Ali as a person. We're not even talking about how entertaining Muhammad Ali is. We're not talking about none of that stuff. Right? We're talking cold facts. This is the kind of fighter that Muhammad Ali was, as Roy. And in addition, when certain attributes Muhammad Ali had were gone, he had to compensate in a different sort of way. So he used, as Floyd said, the rope-a-dope and other upper body movement to compensate for the lack of the lack of his legs, being able to move on his legs like he used to when he was younger. Same thing with Roy. Roy tried to compensate for that, mostly with the two guard trying to rope-a-dope. The problem was he couldn't rope-a-dope as well and as tightly as Muhammad Ali could rope-a-dope, so he got knocked out a couple times, right? But Roy was a similar fighter to Muhammad Ali, and that's all Floyd was saying. And based on that, this is what Floyd is saying. I'm not like those two guys. I can do other things, even though I don't have the quickness and I may not have the kind of legs that I used to have when I was younger. I may not have the kind of hands I used to have as a younger. I adapted. I evolved like Bernard Hopkins. And I adjusted my game to suit. And I'm not saying that Muhammad Ali didn't adjust his game to suit either, or Roy Jones Jr. It's just that Floyd was much more successful with his adjustments and much more complete a fighter, even with those adjustments. So that's what I'm saying. And Bernard Hopkins was a similar kind of fighter. He was a much more complete fighter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The problem with Bernard Hopkins is he did not know when to say enough's enough, right? Same thing with Roy. Same thing with Muhammad Ali. And Floyd shows he knew when to say enough's enough, pack up and leave. And there are very few fighters who did that. Rocky Marciano was one. Andrew was another. Joel Calzaki's another. Timothy Bradley's another. These guys got wise that there's nothing really out there. I proved what I had to prove. Let me step off into the sunset. Give somebody else a chance to shine. Right? And hopefully Terrence Crawford would be one of those guys, as well as some of these younger guys coming up. Now, these younger guys coming up, though, they're still not putting themselves in positions to be challenged. While you can be strategic about things, you should not appear to people to be ducking and dodging anybody. Of course, that is hard to do because appearances, but at least make sure that you yourself don't duck and dodge anyone. Don't do that. That's not what Floyd was. That's not his career. People have perceptions about him ducking and dodging people, but Floyd really did not do that. And once he locked in on an opponent, he locked in on an opponent. And that was it. He ain't talking about no opponent after. He's not talking about any future fights until that fight happens. So those were the kinds of things you can take from Floyd Mayweather. Disciplined, consistent, never underestimated anyone. Never found himself in a position where, like Roy, people who hate him get an opportunity to take away from him his undefeated record or whatever. He's very intentional about what he was going to do. Paul Sparta for incident really made him tighten up his game and made him go to the next level. And that's the important thing to remember. And so I'm not saying he was an angel. You know, he abused women, and we have incidents of him being violent to other people earlier on in his career. As he got older, I don't know how he does things now, but you can see he's matured quite a lot, and he's a much more thoughtful person about other people now. You know, I just hope that he understands that we need a free Palestine for the world to be free. I know he has a lot of Jewish friends, and there's nothing wrong with having Jewish friends, but if they're Zionist and they're pushing for the state of Israel the way how they're doing it right now, and he's supporting that, then again, he's showing himself not to be a Muhammad Ali, because Muhammad Ali would be against that, as Malcolm X was. So hopefully he's on the side of people, but I don't know. He probably just cares about his family and that's it, you know, nobody else. But I don't care. As a fighter, he was a damn good fighter. And that's all I'm saying. As a fighter, Roy Jones Jr. was also a damn good fighter. You don't have to have a spotless, immaculate record like Floyd Mayweather, a 50-0 with no draws, no losses, to be a damn good fighter. And that's the important thing to understand. You like who you like, you dislike who you dislike, okay, fine. Just be honest about it. I'll see you guys later. I'm what you need. Peace.